At the height of their fame, they delivered flawless performances, choreographed routines, and perfectly timed vocals. Audiences believed they were witnessing musical mastery, but few suspected the carefully concealed reality behind the stage. What was presented under the spotlight was only a fraction of what truly existed. The backstage area was not just a space of logistical preparation. It was a tightly controlled environment built to maintain an illusion. While the crowd focused on the artists under the lights, behind the curtains, a network of support staff, production engineers, and technical crews executed the real mechanics of each show. But beyond that, something else was hidden: the actual source of the sound. Many acts in the late 80s and early 90s, especially those with sudden international fame, were heavily reliant on pre-recorded vocals. In some cases, the performers on stage weren't even the ones singing on the studio albums. Milli Vanilli became the most infamous case of this practice. Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan were promoted globally as the new faces of pop. They performed in front of thousands, accepted awards, gave interviews, and stood in photo shoots. But behind every performance, the real voices, those of session singers Charles Shaw, John Davis, and Brad Howell, remained hidden in the shadows. The sound that filled arenas and flooded radio waves was recorded in a studio by people the audience never saw. On stage, Rob and Fab moved their lips and danced. Off stage, the truth was kept under strict secrecy. Backstage security was often instructed not to allow unauthorized personnel near the sound equipment. Stagehands were kept away from the mixing consoles where pre-recorded tracks were controlled. Press access was limited. Questions about the duo's vocal ability were deflected. Every public appearance was managed down to the second. Even in interviews, when asked about songwriting or studio work, the answers were vague or rehearsed. The deception was systematic. The system that propped up Milli Vanilli was not unique to them. Several pop acts used similar techniques to maintain consistent performances and to ensure show quality regardless of live vocal ability. What set this case apart was how fully the singers were replaced, and how fully the public was misled. Once the truth emerged in 1990, when producer Frank Farian admitted that Rob and Fab hadn't sung on any of the records, the illusion collapsed. But before that confession, the machine behind the stage operated with precision. Rehearsals were monitored not to perfect sound, but to perfect lip-sync synchronization. Sound engineers behind the scenes manually triggered playback cues during live shows. Any technical failure could expose the truth, and it nearly happened multiple times before the final unraveling. In July 1989, during a live MTV performance, the backing track for "Girl You Know It's True" began to skip, looping the phrase repeatedly. Rob panicked and ran off stage. The event lasted only a few seconds, but it planted doubts that would later grow into full exposure. Until then, no one outside the production circle had full access to what occurred backstage. The incident revealed a crack in the operation. What they were hiding behind the stage was not just a technical process. It was the complete manufacturing of a musical act. The true artists, the real voices, were left uncredited while the faces on stage absorbed both the glory and eventually the blame. When the scandal broke, it was Rob and Fab who were ridiculed, but the decisions had been made long before their first public appearance. The backstage world had operated like a controlled studio. No live vocals, no deviation, no improvisation. What the fans thought they were hearing live was a playback. What they thought was spontaneous was pre-engineered. What they thought was talent was design. The success of the act relied entirely on the audience never seeing behind the curtain. Once they did, the deception was irreversible. The story remains one of the most significant cautionary tales in the music industry. It forced a shift in how live performance is viewed, how credits are assigned, and how fame is manufactured. Today, the question of authenticity continues to challenge performers, but few incidents have ever matched the scale of what was hidden behind Milli Vanilli's stage.